What is the perfect sales proposal? Is there a template you can use? Is there a process you could follow? Is it something you can automate or use AI to help you do? Well, the answer might surprise you. Let's break it down on the podcast.
You're listening to Breaking BizDev with John Tyerman and Mark Wainwright. Conversations that break down, beat up, and redefine business development for the professional services firms of tomorrow. And now for your hosts, John and Mark.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Breaking BizDev. I am Mark Wainwright. That is John Tyerman, and today we are going to talk about the perfect proposal.
It's a sunset on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
You're down on one knee. You're asking your client, hey, do you want to enter into a 5-year engagement together?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. That image and that word proposal comes to mind. It's like, working in professional services is that image so rarely enters into people's mind. But as soon as you mention it, this whole other vision of actually what the perfect proposal would be comes flooding into your brain. You're like, oh yeah, right. It would be sunset. There would be a beach, and all this is like, it would be perfect. It would be amazing. And I'm like, okay, so take that framing that this needs to be perfect, and overlay it on what you're doing now, and your sort of hacked, thrown together new business proposals with your clients. Is like, are they gonna say yes to you as you extend the ring? Are they gonna? No, they're no. You've done a terrible job. You barely know each other. This is horrible. Everything's unexpected. You're just like, right, you're gonna get married, and you're like, hey, let's get married, and we're gonna move to
Arkansas.
I was even think further, like, it's like, we're moving to South America,
wow.
Whatever, it's just like, everything's unexpected. You didn't know what this was like. I didn't know blue was your favorite color. It's like, really? You don't like seafood? We digress. So we're here to talk about the perfect proposal, and it ties to a bunch of stuff in the past that we've discussed, but it ties a lot of it together. So we're going to create a nice little package here of a number of things related to the perfect proposal, and hopefully it's simple. We have been fortunate to, I know you spent a little bit of time with David C. Baker and Blair Enns, who are the hosts of Two Bobs, and they do a great job. And they did a snarky episode a while ago. I think it was some years ago. I don't know if it was about the secrets. I think it was called The Secrets Behind the Killer Proposal. Do you remember that?
I didn't listen to it until you flagged it a couple weeks ago when we were talking about it.
Okay,
and then, it was very snarky. It wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting it to be just pretty straightforward, but I thought that was a really great episode.
Oh, yeah. And I listened to it right around the time when it was published, and the fury and firestorm that followed was insane. Like, it was crazy. It was, and I mean, they're two smart guys, and their content is fantastic. And just for this one, they decided to, be sarcastic, right? So they went ahead and created an entire episode completely based on what not to do, in a proposal. And everybody, like 99% of the people that listened to it, took it wrong. It was like, that's crazy. I don't understand why you guys said do like it was funny. I mean, it's absurd. It's an absurd episode, but people lost their minds.
For example, let me just give a taste of it. One of their examples was always put your logo in the top left hand corner of your proposals and the client's logo in the top right to show that, oh, we look so good together.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, it got.
So there's just a little taste. Go check out that
good
episode
for sure. It's worth a listen. We like to have fun, John. The intent of our episode is not to be snarky, for sure.
Not this time.
Not this time. Okay, cool. All right, right back at it. Let's start at the beginning. Right, let's begin at the beginning. What happens at the very beginning here?
I would say let's go all the way upstream in your sales and marketing process. Let's go all the way upstream to the source of a lead.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah,
even
that's way up
before
there.
you have a conversation with an opportunity, how
Yep.
did they find you? I mean, was it a referral? Was it inbound from your website? Was it through social media conversations? Was this someone that you had a conversation with at a live event last year that popped their head up? I mean, it's
Yeah.
important to know where the leads come from so that you can layer that into your understanding and your discovery of that particular opportunity.
I think that's great. I mean, not all leads are created equal, right? I mean,
Exactly.
some are, inbound, right? They come to you through your marketing work. Some are from outbound actions, where you are going and getting them, where you are asking for referrals or whatever else. And so there's a bunch of flavor all in that. And if you get to the point where you're applying the same language, the same approach, the same proposals to all of these various leads, then you're probably doing something wrong, right? So, good point. We need to understand that, and we need to let those different lead sources inform how we propose, what we propose,
Mhm.
etc.
And then I know we've talked about these different sales stages in the past on past episodes, but Mark, what's the next phase here?
Qualification, right? We got the lead. We need to qualify the lead appropriately. Are they, are they the type of buyers? Are they the type of clients that we want to work with? Do they have a problem we can solve? All of that, sure. Discovery. We need to dig deep, understand them deeply. What are they trying to achieve? What outcomes do they want? What do they want to avoid? You know, everything we throw into good discovery. We need to make great recommendations based on our discovery, based on our understanding. 3-option proposals for good negotiation, right? We agree on terms of the deal. We just walk through a sales kind of process there. Sure,
Yep.
that's the sequence: 1, 2, 3, ABC.
And then if listeners want to go expand on that and go deeper, check out A Sales Process is a past episode that we put out a few months ago that goes into each stage of that process in a little bit more depth.
Do not believe that the proposal is a thing that's all in of itself, right? The reason we run through that process is because it's so tightly woven into it. A great proposal needs all that stuff.
Yep.
It needs all those components in, and it's not just some pretty document with their logo in the top left corner and your logo in the top right corner, right? With somebody shaking hands on the front, whatever, and the cover letter begins with we're excited to submit our, right. That's not what we're
The
doing here.
whole is worth more than the sum of its parts. I think that's
For
the
sure.
old adage here.
For sure. And we're gonna. I mean, here's my little snarky bias coming in here, John. Is that I'll just interject this right now? Is that does the perfect proposal, even exist? It's like, well, maybe
Ooh.
it does, maybe it doesn't. From my perspective, it's like people who are looking for the perfect proposal are looking for the wrong thing, right? Right.
Yeah.
It's, the whole sales process we just walked through right there. It's like they think the proposal is everything. And for me, it's like what's basically nothing. It's basically just, documentation of everything that's happened to date where you've had great conversations. And then the conversation is like, okay, this is what we're going to propose. This is the dollar amount, everything else. And you good? And they're like, yeah, we're good. Okay, great. Good. I'll send you a piece of paper to sign. Right.
Because there's
there's
no
like,
surprises.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we digress. I think, maybe we just end now. What are we, like 10 minutes
12
in? We'll
minutes
just
in.
end right
Yeah.
now. That's it. That's it. All right. So let's, you wanted to take a little tack on this. What does this look like?
Yeah.
The perfect proposal. What does a perfect proposal look like from different, to different roles in the consultant organization? Let's kind of come at it. Let's look at that facet of the perfect proposal.
I thought that this was an interesting exercise, and it's a little bit of a different spin on the sales and marketing continuum that we've used in the
Yeah.
past.
Good.
And this
Yeah.
is like the different roles that support a proposal to a potential new client. You've got the opportunity owner, you've got the delivery team, you've got the marketers, you've got proposal managers, you've got
Yeah.
other folks that support in other different ways. Those are the four that we kind of zeroed in on. But let's
Yeah.
start with the opportunity owner. So the person who is in a business development seat, maybe they're a doer seller, maybe they're a dedicated rep. but they're the one who owns the relationship and is responsible for moving this forward within their sales process.
Yeah.
So I think the reflection question for this person in this seat is, within this proposal, did we accurately reflect back the prospect's needs and then address them with our solution?
Yeah. And I would layer in, one thing right in front of that. Did we accurately, or did we successfully uncover the prospective client's needs? Did we successfully uncover their needs and then what you said, accurately reflect back to them our understanding and address them in our options in our proposal?
Good amendment.
Well, I mean, it's just, the uncovering thing means that we didn't make too many assumptions, right? It
Right.
means
Yeah.
that we didn't come into this with a bunch of boilerplate and a bunch of like, oh yeah, we're just going to do the same old thing. And this client is not different from the last. So did we successfully uncover their needs? And like we always say, the things that they place, things are important to them, right? Things they place the most value on. Did we successfully uncover those things so that we can reflect back to them and says, did we hear this correctly? This is what we heard. This is what we heard you say. This is what your priorities are, et cetera. And then we price them in our options. Good. Opportunity owner from that. That's a good one. I like this. I like this thing. All right. So the next one you had here was the delivery team perspective on this.
Yeah, so these are the folks that are actually going to deliver on the work, and in our doer-sellers case, they're in a good position to be able to have perspective on this. But if you're operating within an organization where you have a sales team and then a delivery team, then you're going to need to talk with that delivery team and understand from their perspective, are they able to deliver on the solution for the client as promised within the proposal? So that's the big question there.
Yeah, for sure. And for expert firms, I mean, this is core, right? I mean, this is central to it. This is the moment where the proposal team, marketers, everybody who's been involved in this thing up front has really aligned and is of one mind with the delivery team so that, they're putting forward a reasonable scope with, a reasonable level of efforts and involvement, engagement from the delivery team, where not, the client's going to be overjoyed and successful. They're going to achieve what they want to achieve. The consultant is going to be successful, right? So this is that whole sort of, okay, are we putting forward something where we're both going to be successful, right? So I love that.
It's tricky because it gets kind of intertwined with like resource planning and understanding like capacity of your team.
Yep.
And you probably have a little bit more experience on the engineering side. My experience with this is mostly on the agency side of things. I've seen situations where the delivery team doesn't really quite have a full grasp on the timing of these proposals and the when the work hits, because they're like, oh my God, I'm on fire right now. I can't even think about taking on any more work. It's like, well, the work won't happen for another 3 months.
Yeah. Right. I just have this. I worked for a marketing agency forever ago, creative agency, and I just have this picture in my mind of just constantly fire hosing creative, with just stuff. You're like, oh, there's another thing. There's another thing. There's another thing. Oh, the client just called. Oh, there's another thing. So it's just like this endless fire hose of just stuff with no regard of, mental health, capacity, reasonable working hours, and whatever, and we could go on that for days. So good. So these are things, right? Opportunity owner, delivery team. These are all important, critical components that all come together to form the perfect proposal. How about the marketer? Does the marketer still have a role here in creating the perfect proposal?
Well, the marketer's role happens far upstream. So we talked about earlier about like, where did the lead come from, right? Was it a website, a referral, et cetera? But I think for the marketing team, did they educate the prospect well enough before it got to the proposal stage, before they reached out? And you can measure this in terms of pipeline velocity. How quickly did they move through the pipeline? That's one unit of measurement that you can take a look at. But were they armed with the information that they needed to be able to have a productive conversation in those early discovery phases with the sales professional?
Good. Yeah, the marketing stuff happens, obviously, like you said, way upstream, and it is the thing that tees everyone else up for success or not, right? So good one. All right, last one you have here is proposal manager.
And Mark, you might have a better perspective on the proposal manager than I do, but I think the big reflection question for them would be, did we set the stage right in the sales process for this proposal?
Yeah, it's very similar to the opportunity owner, but the proposal manager is taking direction and taking content from all these different pieces and bringing it all together. And hopefully the proposal manager has, sufficient information that says, okay, we uncovered the problem, we're addressing the problem, here are our options, the pricing is well presented. And again, there's a lot of proposal managers out there, people in sort of the AEC industry and et cetera, that aren't really responsible for pricing. I have often said that those folks absolutely should be, not necessarily the dollar amount, but just that we are, these various components that are coming together in the proposal make sense. They're easy to read. They're going to, they're not going to slow down the decision-making process. They're actually they're going to help the client make a really smart decision, right? So the proposal manager should ultimately be responsible for that. Is like, we pulled together this document that is, of the client, right? It is reflective of everything what their needs are, what their wants are, their goals, et cetera. We've put together some fantastic options. We're presenting it in a way that makes a ton of sense. So the proposal manager really needs to be the person that says, okay, so have we assembled this all appropriately? And again, our brains default to putting together a document, but the proposal manager should obviously be supporting the opportunity owner and others who are going to be participating in a conversation, right? Because we'll get to that next, right? And that's a critical component of the perfect proposal, is that it's not just a piece of paper, John. It's a conversation.
Interesting. I want to unpack that a little bit, because something that you said really stood out to me, and it was that proposal managers should be responsible for pricing. Did I hear you say that right?
Sure. Yeah, and pricing, in that the proposal manager should be the person that looks at the pricing that is presented and says, it makes sense. We've got a low price,
gotcha.
We've got a medium price, we've got a high price. It's put together in a logical order. Clearly the low price is a small scope. There's a bunch of exclusions and a bunch of stuff we're not doing. The high price, it's got the kitchen sink in it. It's got everything. It's got these, so the delivery team are going, the project manager, delivery team, the lead on the delivery team person is the person that ultimately, along with the opportunity owner, if we're talking like doer-sellers, those are the people that develop price.
Right. Yeah.
The proposal manager should be taking that information and putting it together in a way.
Testing it, really.
Testing it and make sure the client is going to, are they going to be able to read this? I was like,
yeah,
folks, you just gave me pricing for this particular, client that it's going to take you 45 minutes just to explain this one part. And when we translate this to a slide or a document, it's going to take us 40 pages to explain this. It's like, we can't do this. We can't put this much cognitive load on our clients as they're trying to make these really important decisions. And, they're having to cross-reference, if you want option 2, you go to page 19, and then they have to go back to page 13 and add that number up and do, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about here, is that the proposal manager really is the person that, sure, you're working, got your sleeves rolled up, you're working in the document, but also you have to take a step back and be like, does this whole document make sense? Does this whole conversation make sense? Does the flow of this presentation, is it logical? Is by the time we hit this particular point in the conversation, is the client going to be ready to be like, all right, cool, great, let's talk price, great, so there's that.
That's real. Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's more like you've said this in the past, but it's very much like information design, and how is the proposal structured in a way that conveys it.
100% for sure. You're listening to Breaking BizDev,
the podcast that beats up, breaks down, and redefines business development for the professional services firms of tomorrow. Your hosts are John Tyerman, founder of Red Cedar Marketing, the podcast marketing company for experts and professional services firms,
and Mark Wainwright, principal consultant and founder of Wainwright Insight, the fractional sales manager and sales consultant to professional services firms.
If you find this podcast helpful, please help us by following the show and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts.
And now, back to the show.
All right, so we've got the kitchen, right? We've got the cooks who are in the
Yeah.
kitchen.
Yeah.
So let's talk ingredients for a
Yeah.
minute. Like what are the different, we've talked about all these like on individual episodes in the past. So if folks want to go back and check them out, they can. But let's talk about some of the different key elements of these sales proposals.
Yeah. And remember, folks, we're talking about the perfect proposal, right? And before we go through this, let's go back to our original sort of, image that flashed in someone's mind, is that there's, someone on bended knee in the beach in the sunset, whatever else. It's like, right? Would you ever propose marriage to, or whatever, would you ever propose to someone, in a PDF attachment on an email? We have to look at these business proposals not in the same light, John, but informed by the same emotions and ups and downs and confusion and clarity and everything else that inform these other proposals in our lives, right? So, what this says to me is that the perfect proposal is something that is communicated in a synchronous live conversation, right? That is first and foremost. And I would tell you that the second thing, there's some other bits and pieces that we'll get to, but the other thing that is sort of like a non negotiable for me is that the proposal needs to be all about the other people, the other person, the client. You're not proposing to your life partner and being like, this is really going to work out great for me. I'm really excited because I think that, I bring a lot to your life, and you should say yes because, I'm just, I'm a catch, right? That's not what you're saying when you're proposing. You're like, look, I'm ready to do this because you have changed me. You turned me into a new person, right? I mean, so proposals need to be about the clients, and they need to be live synchronous conversations, right? There you go. Did I digress? I kind of wandered all over the place there.
Maybe a little bit, but the point kind of strikes true. One of them that we have here on the list, I think, is really good, and this is one that I thought, in my opinion, is maybe the most important hot take, but it's the consistent follow up. We talked about that on an episode recently, and it just dawned on me that that's what keeps everything moving, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like your analogy of links in the chain. It really kind of stood out to me. At least since we've recorded that, I've definitely taken a different approach to that. But I think like if we're talking about the perfect proposal and the whole is worth more than the sum of its parts, then every interaction that gets you that moves you along there's a premium on that in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a great component of that. And it's glaringly obvious if that hasn't been part of this whole perfect proposal. It's like, well, when is the last time you're sending them a proposal and they're kind of ghosting you? And when is the last time you talked? What was the content of that conversation? What deeper understanding did you gain through that conversation? Like, what's your back and forth, your follow up, your conversations, everything else? It's so important, because if we're having conversations and we're doing great follow up, thanks for talking on Tuesday. We discussed this thing and this thing. I understood this. You mentioned this. This is an important component. All those bits and pieces. We take all those bits and pieces and we just pull them together in what I call the statement of understanding, right? And we've talked about this. And the statement of understanding is a critical, compulsory part of every proposal, which says, this is everything we understand. Did we get that right? Like that's effectively what that is. This is everything we heard. We heard you mention. These are the outcomes you want. Did we get that right? And sometimes I'll say, yeah, you nailed it. Or there's an edit here. You missed a component here. You were off on this thing, whatever else. Because that statement of understanding builds the foundation for that next component.
3-option pricing tables.
Yes.
And we've talked about this in the past and why this is so important. And that statement of understanding kind of sets the foundation and puts them in a position to make a decision. They feel in control. Yep. They see that understanding, that statement of understanding reflected in the options that you're putting in front of them.
Statement of understanding builds the foundation for the recommendations and the 3-option proposals, right? So like you said, we give the client the ability to choose with our 3 options: low, medium, high, small, medium, big, whatever, however we structure it. And we've talked in the past about a number of different ways you can structure these options, but we're giving the client the agency and the control that they want and need in order to make the buying decision confidently, right? So There you go. Great. And then the last component that we don't want to leave out, because I think this is still part of the perfect proposal from my perspective, is negotiation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And negotiation says that we're going to get to a point where we have a win-win situation in front of us. We're both really excited about this. And we've got everything super clear about what we're doing and what you're doing and compensation and all this other stuff. So that is all really clear. Without good negotiation, there's still some holes a lot of times in the work to be done that contribute to, we did a recent episode on sort of like changes in scope. Oh, I thought you guys were going to do this. Oh no, we were going to leave that out. So there's that. And good negotiation helps really just use a cheese. Why am I going to use a cheese? I'm going to use a cheese reference here, right?
Do it.
It turns the Swiss cheese into a nice mozzarella. I don't know, whatever. Fills
That's
all the
a
holes.
major upgrade.
It was weird.
Opinion.
It was, yeah. So it fills all the holes, right? Good negotiation. I think people are fearful of negotiation, and it just means negotiation means we're going to get hammered on price and scope, whatever else. It's like, no, actually, good negotiation just helps clarify and flesh everything out so that both you come out of this whole thing signing contracts, ready to go. It tees your engagement up for success. So there you go. Super easy components. And you're like, wait a minute, Mark, we missed out on all this other stuff that we thought was really important to include in our proposal. That's all the stuff I think is important. And what's the bonus material, John, that,
if you have all of these other areas covered, let's call them Easter eggs that you can pull into your proposals. Icing on the cake, gravy. Client success stories was one that we had. Sure. Didn't quite make the kind of the key element list, but this is definitely something that can help you out. So showing that past performance, showing those real world examples. Social proof is another one. So if you don't have a full story to tell, bring in testimonials, bring in references, and then resumes. And Mark, you added this one to the list. Tell the listeners about resumes and their
role. It's if you work in some architecture firm out there in the world and you've received a request for proposal from a potential client, and it's like section number 1, experience, section number 2, resumes, section number 3, references. They're like, Mark, they're asking for all this stuff up front. And we're saying, John, that this stuff is important stuff to have for sure, right? And some clients will insist you put it in the proposal. Okay, just stick it in the back, right? Put the resumes in the back, put the references in the back, right? Because all of this stuff is about you.
Right.
It's not about the client, right? And the client thinks that this stuff is the most important part of the proposal, right? So they ask for it up front. They're like, oh, we need to have their resumes and their project. Yes, all of that stuff, sure, they can ask for it and you can give it to them, but just put it in the back, right? It's your appendix, right? The most important stuff is we know you, we know the client. Here's some recommendations on how you can achieve what you want to achieve. And here's some pricing and options that kind of go along with it. Those you can't tell me that your resume is going to be more important than really extremely well designed 3-option pricing. Never.
Yeah. I think that's a fantastic point, and that's a good lens for which to look at your proposals, even page by page. Is this page about us or is this page about the client?
Yeah. Let's talk about a document here. Whatever, a conversation it could be, or maybe you're going to go present to a prospective client, whatever else it is, right? You just get your little highlighter out and you start highlighting all the content that you're planning to talk about, or your document. Just highlight everything that's about you in pink and highlight everything that's about them in green. And
it's going to be pretty pink.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty pink. And a lot of people think, well, that's what the client wanted. It's like, no, that's what the client thought they wanted.
Yep.
That's what the client thinks they want, is you to go and talk about yourself. But at the end of the day, they're like, wow, they just put in a bunch of gobbledygook in this and they never really paid attention to us, the client, right? So unfortunately, they're like, shoot, now it's hard to choose. They all talked about themselves the whole time, but nobody really seemed to focus on us much, So
there you have it.
There you go. Was that a rant? Was that a rant? That might have been a rant a little bit.
No, I think it's good because, and especially your last point of the client is sitting with their desk, all these different proposals from that RFP process, and all of these different competing firms are talking about themselves except one, except yours.
Except one. And I just want that to hit you on the side of the head like a baseball bat. And it's like, oh, they all talked about themselves except for us. Oh, we're different now. And people think, oh, our differentiation is our 14 years of experience in this and that, whatever else. It's like, no, actually, your client organization or your client orientation, your obsessive focus on them instead of you is a powerful differentiator for sure. So yeah, that's another part of a perfect proposal, right? This obsessive focus on the client for sure. All right. There it is, John. It's not pretty. I'm sorry, folks. There's no template. There's no download. There's no nothing. There's not, right? But it's just like relentless focus on the client, a series of fantastic synchronous conversations, right? Consistent follow-up the whole time, building a really powerful client-centric statement of understanding, putting forward recommendations, client-centered recommendations with options, 3 options, right? And then having fantastic negotiation towards the end. Like that's our marriage proposal.
Sunsets, sunrises, beach. Yeah, exactly. Fancy Italian restaurant, string quartet in the corner.
Yeah.
That's it there. Mark, I think this was a fantastic breakdown of the perfect sales proposal.
Yeah, for sure.
Until next time.
Until next time, John.
Thanks for listening to Breaking BizDev. Subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or listen to the show at breakingbizdev.com. This episode was produced by Red Cedar Marketing. If you think a business podcast is right for your company, visit redcedarmarketing.com to learn more.